All right, we got a quorum here, Jesse.
Yeah, we are good to get started.
Okay, fantastic. Good morning, folks. Michael Weinberg with California Forward. Really excited to be working with you folks on the High Road Transition Collaborative of the Community Economic Resilience Fund. Coming to you today, actually, from Costa Mesa, but we're all online, so could be coming to you from anywhere. Just wanted to do a really quick agenda review, and then we're going to launch into our business for this morning. So we're starting out with some business, specifically very intentionally appointing some new members of the HRTC, consistent with your direction to be very intentional about the sectors that we're building out. We are then moving to final approval of the plan draft, which you folks have had for about a month. We have done everything that we can to be responsive to all the concerns that were raised, in the conversations that we had last month about research. We built out that section. We also wanted to show our work. There are some comments in the document that was just shared with you that show the questions that we received from the state and what our responses to those were. We'll go into more detail when we do that. Then we're really going to focus on the research piece, which came up again and again as a real interest of folks. And in particular, not just your sort of like high level, census data type research, but some very hyper local research focused on disinvested communities, research focusing on the environmental conditions in the Orange County region. And then, as we've discussed from the beginning, this really shouldn't be a project that's operating in a silo. And so we're going to conclude with a conversation on the inclusive economic recovery strategy of the Southern California Association of Governments to make sure that we're all being coordinated as we move forward with trying to develop an economy that is more equitable and more sustainable. And then that will be the end of our formal meeting. We are, I know we've done some of these meetings offline in anticipation of this meeting, but all of the researchers are going to stay on for half an hour. We may or may not have any time for Q&A during the next hour, but then we'll have a deep dive session from 9:30 until 10 for everybody who wants to stick around for that. So with that, let's move into the first item on our agenda. And that is appointing a few new members to the HRTC. We heard loud and clear from you folks that we need to make sure that we are being, with anybody else that we are adding to the HRTC, extremely intentional to fill out specific sectors where we are low. In the materials, Jesse has, shown that in particular, we were a little low on workforce entities and environmental justice organizations. And then in particular was brought up that it's great that we have so much presence from labor unions, but we need to make sure to have labor unions that represent a pretty broad range of professions, including service workers. So the action item in front of you today, and ideally we'll be able to do by consensus, but if not, we have the capacity to put it up for majorities. And as we've discussed, we really feel like we are rounding into the sort of final list. But we have the Orange County Coastkeeper, an environmental organization, the Sunrise Movement, really an environment, which is a tremendous workforce organization. And then a couple of organizations associated with Unite Here, they're local in Orange County, and then their hospitality training academy that we think will be an excellent partner in this work. So, based on your direction, there might be a handful of other folks that we end up adding before all is said and done, but wanted to move forward. We'll do a first and second to advance the slate, and then we can see whether there is any discussion on the item. So do we have a move to add these folks to the HRTC?
I'd like to move to add these folks to the HRTC.
Thanks, Ernesto. Do we have a second?
I will second.
Micah, I will. You have a choice. I think I saw LaShonda go first.
Okay.
I will
All right.
second.
Excellent. We will accept that as a second. Any discussion? Okay. Then are there any objections, or can we accept this slate by consensus? All right, I see little disembodied hands floating up on my Zoom screen. I'm assuming that's a good thing. Although honestly, sometimes that's a little creepy. So yeah, fantastic. Item number 1 is done. And Unite Here and the Hospitality Training Academy, we really appreciate your engagement with this work, and we look forward to working with you through the life of this project. All right. Item number 2, and this is the planning phase draft. We had some discussion about this. Last time there was a focus in particular on research, and that's in part we design these agendas and our work based on the feedback that we get from you folks. And so we have received a lot of feedback offline from different folks. We have made our best effort to incorporate it. There's, I hope that everybody has gotten a chance to review it. I thought all of that, sort of feedback and additions were additive versus, kind of changing any of the key elements of this. One thing that I want to call out, though, is that this timeline will probably end up having to be updated, right? I mean, we're moving pretty quickly here, but I, anticipate that there'll end up being some slippage as we, have to circle back and focus on particular things and make sure that we're doing this right. So we do, and maybe this is just our being more worried about the timeline than anybody else, but we just want to make sure that, that, to the extent that we believe that we, need to expand this timeline a little bit, we will go back to the state and ask for those revisions. So again, I'm going to ask for a first and a second on this, and then we will move to discussion, if any, on the planning phase proposal. And by the way, this is due to the state on Monday. So that's why we wanted to bring it to you at earlier meetings, but we do need to move on this. But do we have a first?
Can I raise a comment?
Sure. Well, I mean, we can do that.
Because I don't know exactly where to make this comment, and as you said, I mean, we're about to make an important approval, and so I feel like I should get this in quickly. As I've mentioned to Jesse and others offline, first of all, thank you for approving me, and my name is Austin Lynch, representative of Unite Here, and we're excited to be part of this. We have a strong feeling that the research process also similar to the composition of the HRTC, the research also needs to be inclusive of research entities that have the worker perspective centered. And I think that my recommendation is that the UCI Labor Center be included in as one of the entities doing the research. And I think that's going to be important for everybody to feel comfortable and for there to be buy-in in the research conclusions. So I'd like to, again, I don't know what item specifically that goes to, but before anything's approved, I'd like that to be noted that that's a strongly felt conclusion of ours regarding how the process should be conducted.
No, I appreciate that, Austin, and welcome. Jesse, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that a move like that would be precluded by our approving and submitting this planning phase draft. that the issue of adding a another research entity to the process is a little bit more complicated than something that we can do on the line right now. I know we're open to those conversations, but we would have to take them online to take them offline to figure out the details. But Jesse, is it correct that submitting this planning phase draft would not preclude us from working with the UCI Labor Center going forward?
No, I don't think so. And then if the state needs it, happy to send an amended copy of the planning phase plan to include it so it's in writing. But absolutely happy to connect with them and see what's feasible with the research and what your expectations are and what they're capable of doing.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
Yeah. We're fully committed to that, and we want to make sure that we have time to do that justice. Great. Kate.
Just backing up Austin, representing UCI and not seeing the research university in Orange County as part of the list of research consultants is an interesting choice.
Great.
So would appreciate acknowledgement of UCI, certainly the center that Austin has mentioned, which are at several UC campuses, but we have one at UCI. But I know Wallace has told me that he's working with some researchers at UCI, but as the only research university designated, 1A research university in Orange County, that would be
great.
Thanks, might be
Kate.
helpful to the plan to have us listed as part of the research group.
Fantastic. Ernesto.
Yes, thank you. I also want to echo what the previous two speakers have mentioned, the importance. UC Irvine Labor Center is pretty new. However, I think there'll be some parallel work that it'll be doing with a lot of the labor movement. And I think it's important to have them as an integral part of the research component. However, we can work that through in the mechanics. I'd also be willing to roll up my sleeves and help out.
Fantastic. I'm writing down these comments are also volunteering. So we are writing down that folks are interested in this, and we'll make sure to follow up with you on what that process ends up being. Tracy.
Hello, it's actually Tony Simons.
I'm
at the airport, so I apologize. I had a couple technical comments relative to the overall draft, and I apologize I didn't do it till last night. One of them was having in the timeline after the groups come back with stakeholder engagement to then have the opportunity to go back and get additional data, because sometimes what they may be, and I really like the addition of the local data, which you call hyper local data, but I'm just thinking we might learn things that we want to raise and we would need to have some data to back that up rather than pushing it back to the stakeholders. What I'm wondering is if we, in order to meet the deadline, and this is our draft, what's the process for going back and maybe tweaking some of these pieces in the next couple of weeks? I personally, we didn't find any problems, so it's not about going in a different direction, but like I loved your inclusive piece. My suggestion is moving that to the very top or something, since that is kind of the binding. So it's really kind of more structural.
Sure. Thanks, Tony. So I guess what I would say is, again, we can, to the extent that we need to do this formally, we can always put in a particular amendment. I will say, we are moving really, really quickly. And so the earlier that we get folks' comments on planning phase drafts and other things, the easier it's going to be for us to incorporate them. But the research team's engagement is not one and done. They are, and we'll look at the shape of that as it moves forward. But we're going to have the ability to interact with them throughout the life of the process. And yeah, if Tony, you could put yourself on mute, please, that would be great. And so we'll see whether, I'm not sure whether that is something that we would need to file a formal amendment in order to do. I think we can probably just do that. Sort of make sure that folks understand that, we're, going to have access to the research team throughout the life of the project and not just before the stakeholder engagement. so that the stakeholders can, help direct us if we need to build that out. So I don't think that's going to require a formal amendment, but we really appreciate your direction there, Tony. Okay, well, per usual, we've gotten some fantastic feedback and direction from all of you. So can I get a move to
Mike, I think we have one more comment.
Oh, sorry. Batana.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Good morning. Before we move on, there is another piece that is so important is the outreach engagement plan. I think we I'm grateful to the outreach engagement subcommittee that we have convened, including many of whom are being here today, including Anna, and also we have Sarah from the Mission Up Consultant as well. I think the outreach engagement have to kind of include the strategy around intentional and meaningful engagement of the community in the process, because that is a very important piece, because we have to reach out to those invested communities. And it looked like the plan doesn't really have that piece in there, more generally about the process, how to get there, but we haven't really seen the strategy in there, how to meaningfully engage in there. For example, I think some of the group have mentioned about participatory action research model as a way to engage community through partnership with a lot of community-based organizations from the very beginning, business owner, ethnic business owner, and also through the multiple engagement session that is just one time off, and also based on different geographic area that we have to do that kind of engagement as well. I would love to see something around that, kind of like at least mentioning about what kind of strategy or model we use to engage the community from the very beginning. We just don't want the community to feel being tokenized that we've been doing this just together. We feedback 1 or 2 times, but how do we involve those community members who are really impacted by this
right
every single day to be part of the process from the very beginning? Thank you.
Yeah, I think Jesse, correct me if I'm wrong, but we didn't really specify this with a great deal of detail in this particular, piece, because we're really relying on, the folks on the outreach and engagement versus our being extremely prescriptive about how that should happen. So, definitely are, supportive of everything that you want to do there, and are really going to, learn from you and work with you to make sure that we're doing the outreach and engagement in the way that it needs to be done.
Yeah, Mike, I would say that's correct. And again, the state said we have, 90 days to do this, and that's why it's getting delivered when it is. And Ventana, we are already embarking upon what the right strategy is for outreach and engagement. So thank you for lifting that up to the whole group, but it's not completed. And so there's nothing we could really put into draft yet. And that's just a function of time.
Yeah. And, I think it's important to say, and we can't put all of this on the state, but this is a quicker timeline than we would like. We would like to have at least another year to do this. And, working in partnership with you, we're going to do, the best job that we can possibly do. Also, as we've said time and again, this is one element of what hopefully will be a longer ongoing process. But within the constraints that we're being provided from the state, we're going to work with you to make sure that we are doing maximally meaningful community engagement. Josefa. And you're on mute.
I just had a basic question. What's the purpose of this plan that's being submitted? It seems like it's required by the state. And do they review it and approve and provide recommendations back or feedback back, or and then is there a second level of a draft or a final draft that needs to be done after this? I'm just curious about the road, the path forward with regards to this plan. It looks like it's an outline or a roadmap of what we're going to do, but is there an approval process and recommendations? And then the other question is regarding disinvested communities and the 4 definitions that are provided. Is that provided across all CERF regions, dictated by all CERF regions, or does each region dictate how they define disinvested communities?
On the draft piece, this is something that the state requires us to have. It's something the state would approve. We've already gotten, and we showed in the in sort of margins, the feedback and how we responded to it. Like a lot of other things, I mean, this is a roadmap. A lot of things are going to happen along the road. The map is not the territory. And so in some cases, we're going to have to, submit potentially revisions that the state would take a look at. But one of the things we're trying to do, I mean, to the earlier comment, is not be so prescriptive in this planning phase, document and everything else, that it doesn't give us any running room to do the things that we need. On the disinvested communities piece, the state does have some tools and direction in terms of what that means, but we also have the capacity to define this in a way that makes sense for Orange County, and to put the focus on the particular communities that are data, both the sort of higher level demographic data, economic data, and then sort of hyper local and participatory data will really direct us in terms of the investments that will be being made.
Thank you.
So yeah, so again, this is a little bit of a process point. Whether it's the composition of the research team or other things, we're if necessary, we'll go back to revise. But we have a comment from Carla. Or question.
Hi, I just realized that I have my colleague's name on here.
All right.
This is Luis Sarmiento from Thrive Santana. And yeah, I want to echo the comments of Vatana, and I think at the last meeting also we were talking a little bit about the need for giving that space and that priority to the input from disinvested communities. And I think that you said something really important, that there's certain timelines, there's certain deadlines that we have to meet in the immediate, but we are embarking on a process that will go for a little bit over a year from now. And so I think what we're saying is that it's going to take a commitment from all of us, and especially the partners around the table, whether you're from labor or whether you're from an academic institution or whether you're a community-based organization with experience, doing that engagement work. We do, want to see a commitment from this group to incorporate that in the process moving forward. And we've been having some conversations within the outreach and engagement space, and also in with Jesse as well, about how to make sure to incorporate that into our work plan moving forward in a way that that it's going to allow us to meet the deadlines that we need to meet, but also to not feel rushed. That we do need to meet the state's deadline. And from what I understand, statewide, we're doing okay timeline wise. We're actually a little bit ahead of some of the other groups throughout the state, so we shouldn't feel rushed. Definitely, I know that we want to submit this first. I think there's a first deadline that we have to meet later this month, which I understand is moving forward. But beyond that we're going to be prepared to engage with community folks. In a good way.
Thanks, Luis. And to build on that, I want to sort of reemphasize, this needs to go on after this process, right? But then also it needs to build on the engagement that has already been done with the community. So, when we've done some of this work in other regions, they said, you already had this community meeting. We already told you what our priorities are. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't need to have additional meetings, but it means that we need to make sure that we're not starting from scratch on this, and we're leveraging the good outreach and engagement work that many of the organizations on this call have already done and can already bring to this group. So yes, there is a specific outreach engagement process of this particular process, but we need to make sure that it both builds on and then lives beyond what we do here. Linda.
Yeah, Micah, here's maybe a way that I can help clarify this a little bit. I see this as a planning document as opposed to a strategic plan.
Exactly.
Okay. And I think this is the pathway to get us to a point where we develop as a group a fulsome strategic plan that will then be strategically and tactically executed upon. So this isn't the end. We're not locking ourselves in. We're actually just setting out a pathway, and then we get to come back and develop those elements within the plan. Am I accurate?
Absolutely, you're 100% accurate. And in fact, that's why we are trying not to be overly prescriptive at this point in the process, because we realize that this is moving very quickly. So we want to make sure to fulfill the technical requirements that we need to do to get the money from the state and get those out to the folks that are doing the outreach and so on, but not be so prescriptive at this point that we tie our hands going forward. And so that it is, I don't mean to say this isn't an important document and we shouldn't, pay attention to it. We should, but it is a framework, not like all of the things that we're going to do in all these different areas.
Yes. All right. And with that, if no one else has their hand up, I'll move to accept the plan, understanding that it is the pathway to the developing the fulsome strategic plan that we all anticipate.
Second.
Great. Excellent.
Second.
Perfect. Are there any folks? I saw one hand up, but then it might have gone down. That might have just been somebody seconding. So we have our second. Are there any objections? All right. Well, we move forward with the framework, understanding that we will be building it out in more specificity with all of you. And thanks everybody for your engagement. We are really, this is a collaborative, right? And so, we're really trying to balance, being good sort of conveners and stewards of this collaborative in a way that allows the people with very specific expertise to be, leading on the areas, that they're most expert on. And so really appreciate your engagement, really appreciate everybody's patience, really appreciate the fact that, this is moving more quickly than, we would if we were designing it. That is great. So we are going to go on. That was a really great conversation. We're going to go on to the presentations. And I think, Jesse, what is likely to happen is that some of these presentations may bleed over into our additional half hour. But to see whether we can get to that, we've got about half an hour. And we have 3 presentations. So if we could ask the presenters to get through in 10 minutes or less, and then we can push the questions into the next period. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Voice Media Ventures and Esri to talk about the disinvested community maps.
Thanks so much, Micah. We're very happy to be here today. Because of the time crunch, I will be moving a little more quickly through the background information about Voice Media Ventures and getting straight to the maps, and maybe even moving a little bit more quickly through the story map as well. Just as a quick introduction, I'm Candace Mays, Project Director of Mapping Black California, which is an entity within the Voice Media Ventures universe. I will be framing the disinvested communities map with additional information about Orange County's demographic landscape. And my project manager, Alex Reed, is also here with us today As our primary map maker, she will also be discussing the map itself in tandem with the supplemental information. I'm going to skip over a lot of other information that I was going to talk about, and so we will jump right into it. This first map that we are presenting to you today is the Disinvested Communities map, and we're viewing it as the foundational spatialized visualization for orienting all of you on the HRTC committee to where communities of need specifically reside and their obstacles. Very quickly, I want to orient you a little bit to the story map. On the left-hand side, you will see supplemental information about the Orange County communities, which we use to inform and ground a lot of the information that you'll see on the right-hand side in the map that we've developed. We leverage Policy Links report and equity profile of Orange County as an orienting guide throughout this presentation. And that report states among the 150 largest regions, Orange County is ranked 58th in terms of income inequality, ranking higher than nearby San Diego metro area. While the working poverty rate in the region was lower than the national average in 1980 and 1990, it grew at a faster rate between 1990 and 2000 and is now on par with the national average. Racial and gender wage gaps persist in the labor market, and closing these gaps in economic opportunity and outcomes will likely be key to the region's future. And this is really what we saw as we begin to develop our maps. In Orange County, we see, we begin with the community breakdown, and in Orange County, we see that people of color are driving the region's growth. If you look at these graphs that we pulled from the Policy Link report, you can see the increasing populations over the years in communities of color, right? And as a part of that, there is simultaneously a steady decrease in predominantly white populations. If you look across from 1980 to 1990, there was growth, and then that growth stops from 1990 to 2000, and the trend is continuing into 2016, and I speculate 2020 as well. Alex, would you like to discuss this first layer of the map, which includes looking at the predominant populations of color in the county?
Yes, so I just wanted to go ahead and help with some basic instruction on navigation of this map. Towards the end of this presentation, we'll share the overall map app that exists outside of this slide deck. I've shared the slide deck in the chat as well, if you'd like to follow along on your own computers or screens. But pretty much there will be 4 different layers that we go through on this. This first base layer that we're looking at right now is talking about the population by race in terms of spread, and then predominant population across Orange County. There are 3 predominant populations: white, Hispanic, Latino, or Asian. In white, we have our white predominancy areas, and then to really highlight the communities of color, which are a part of the communities of high impact that we'll talk about later on. We have Hispanic or Latino here in yellow, and then Asian here in red. Additionally, there is information as to historically tribal lands in Orange County. They are a part of this disadvantaged and disinvested communities definition we'll talk about a little bit later. So they're just highlighted here by their borderlines in this dotted line. This layer on the map also contains all of our pop-ups. And these pop-ups just have a little bit more information about the races. So it also includes races that are not considered predominant in that area. And then a little bit of income and a little bit of share information. As you click through these charts, you'll be able to see all that. And Candace will talk a little bit more about income later on in this presentation.
Yes. And to keep it moving, I'm not going to go as deep in the graphs on the side because I'm aware of the time constraints. So predominantly Latino and Asian populations of color are largely concentrated in northern Orange County, as you can see from this map. And keep scrolling, Alex, please. And it's 2 groups with differing circumstances. So most of the Latino residents in Orange County are born in the United States, while many of the members of the Asian community were born abroad. Understanding the origins of the 2 largest communities of color, of the 2 largest communities of color in Orange County is paramount to understanding the increasing diversity across the region. If you look at the map to your right, you will see the growth and the spread of communities of colors across Orange County, but also you will notice a pattern of those communities flowering around previously established communities of color, which aligns with migratory patterns in many communities as well. People move to where they know people. The concentration of lower income areas overlap with communities of color whose populations have high unemployment rates across the board. And so as well in the maps, the graphs that we have featured to the right, you will see that communities of color are disproportionately represented in unemployment rates across racial groups, and are specifically, employment is the biggest challenge for members of the AAPI community as well as the Native American community. And that layer is featured in green on the map. And then we arrive at our disadvantaged areas layer. All low income areas are considered disadvantaged areas. These viewpoint breakdowns are precursors towards understanding the intersectional makeup of disadvantaged communities in the area. And this map layer was visualized using the EPA's CalEnviroscreen definition, which Alex will speak more to.
So this map layer is specifically highlighted in blue. It's the pre-designated disadvantaged areas. The CalEnviroscreen was not challenged, but challenged to identify areas that were in need of very specific funding with regards to sustainability and pollution. And so they have a calculation that they use talking about pollution burden and population characteristics to determine the Enviroscreen score for that area. And that score is what allows the designation of disadvantaged under SB 535, yes or no. And those constraints are being in the top 25% of scores for CalEnviroscreen, being in the top 5% of pollution scores for CalEnviroscreen, being previously identified in the 2017 round of this, and or being a tribally controlled land. So those areas highlighted in blue are pre-designated disadvantaged areas.
As part of our work with this map, we were asked to create an extended definition for Orange County of what disinvested communities means and looks like specifically within this region. And so we turned to areas of intersect, which show us how the stakes are higher for some than others. Areas of intersect outlined in red spotlight high interest, high target, high need, high risk communities because they are facing obstacles across all three major factors impacting both disadvantaged and disinvested communities. And you will see we have a little, I'm blanking on the name of the chart, but we have the three categories here, which are communities of color, low income areas, and disadvantaged areas. I want to point out that disinvested communities include any location with just one or more factors, because having just one factor signals disinvestment, thus putting those communities at risk. So for example, if you look closer to the coastline, you'll see some areas in green, and that notes areas that make below the median income in Orange County. And so we still include those as disinvested communities because making below the median income suggests that there might also be an issue with the income coming into the community as well as being reinvested into the community. And so from that, we were able to develop our extended definition of what a disinvested community is and looks like in Orange County. We call communities considered disadvantaged by CERF's definition alongside communities with only one of the disadvantaged qualifiers, specifically those whose residents earn less than Orange County's median income. And we extend this explanation by saying CERF's predefined definition of disinvested communities includes a variety of overlapping factors, prioritizing specific census tracts in need of immediate investment. While the challenges CERF qualifying disinvested communities face are intersectional, this map also highlights areas of Orange County in which a single factor, as mentioned before, such as making below Orange County's annual median income of $95,000 is a signifier of a census tract at risk for becoming disadvantaged. We all know now 100,000 doesn't go as far today as it did in 2000. For this reason, this map takes into consideration and identifies both census tract communities that meet all the criteria for qualifying as disinvested communities, alongside census tracts with only medium income as disadvantaged, and thus a warning signifier for becoming a disinvested community. And then this map alongside this expanded definition will also be featured on the CERF website. And if it hasn't happened already, Alex will be dropping a direct link to the map in the chat as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Candace. And I think the important thing to say here is this presentation is essentially to show you folks that we care about this and we're taking it seriously. This is only the tip of the iceberg in terms of the amount of analysis and research and work this team and the other teams and the teams as we expand it are going to be working on. And again, we'll be having a deep dive for Q&A from 9:30 until 10. And of course, that's not the only time that folks will have to interact with them. So thank you for going through this so very quickly. I really appreciate the depth and seriousness of your work, and I'm really glad that we have you and your team as a part of our broader team looking into this.
Very welcome. We're happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. So we're going to move on to some environmental analysis. And
Micah?
Yeah.
Micah, I'm so sorry. I just have a quick question. Forgive my ignorance, but I mean, when I was looking at this material, I was fascinated by it, and thank you, Alex and Candace. But I am curious, where in what data is Middle Eastern or Indian or Pakistani ethnicities represented? Because I've seen over my years working in Orange County, that has been significant growth.
This data is mostly pulled from the Census American Community Surveys. So I believe it's dependent on how they self-report, and oftentimes they self-report under white. But we just have the general breakdowns for race. So wherever they have self-reported under those general breakdowns for race and ethnicity is where they're represented.
Yeah, and like we can go into more of the deep dive in the following half an hour, but I think you're raising an incredibly important point, Linda, which is, and this comes up time and time again, and I think this speaks to the hyper-local nature, right? That it is good to have these census data. This is an important layer for us to orient ourselves to where the disinvested communities are in Orange County. But categories like Asian American are incredibly broad and include categories, not everybody in every demographic group has the same experience, but certain demographic groups that are, quite wealthy and well off, other demographic groups that, have a lot more disadvantage, have been disinvested in. So I want to make sure that folks understand there's so much of the work that we're going to be doing, whether it's the research work or outreach and engagement work, that's going to complement these higher level analyses of these different categories. And we can dive more into that at 9:30, but I want to now pass it along to the folks actually from University of California, Irvine. They're going to be doing a quick presentation and then follow up for Q&A after 9:30 on coastal erosion and beach loss.
Thank you very much. So my name is Richard Matthew, and I'm a professor of urban planning and public policy at UCI, and I also direct its new climate and urban sustainability program. And I'm delighted to be here to talk a little bit about Orange County's environmental challenges, which I think are inextricably linked to the prospects for economic resilience and economic prosperity here. Let's just see. So one of the things that I think everybody knows about Orange County is that we have not had the same sort of disasters and the same sort of stresses and shocks that much of the state has, that other parts of the country have had. But we are facing a number of environmental challenges, and all of them are trending in directions that we should be a little bit concerned about. Heat waves, for example, have basically tripled in intensity and duration, and last summer was the worst year on record. Air pollution is a significant concern and a worsening concern in parts of the county, not all parts. Wildfires have been sort of stable in Orange County, but wildfire season is extending, and it's probably going to double over the next couple of years. Drought, as everybody knows, we've had 3 of the worst droughts on record in California in this century, in the past 23 years. I want to talk about, and all of these things, by the way, have economic and health implications and so on. I want to talk about one of these issues, an issue that I think we should be concerned about. It should affect our thinking about things like infrastructure investments. It's an issue that if we act quickly on, we can probably make tremendous progress at a reasonable cost. If we delay, we will start to lose beaches permanently, and we will start to face incredibly expensive costs. All of the problems, including the one I'm going to talk about very quickly here, are a reflection of infrastructure that is old or that was poorly sited or that wasn't well designed or that was undersized for what we have grown into, urban development, paving, population growth, climate change, higher temperatures, and you know, an intensification of the hydrological system. Our approach at UCI is to develop, and you know, this is something that was not possible. You just saw it in the last presentation. It was not possible a few years ago to develop the very fine resolution models that we have now, where we've reduced uncertainty and across a lot of parameters, where we can start to peer into the future cautiously, but with much more certainty than we could 10 or 15 years ago, where we can build models that approximate reality and that people in the community can contribute to. They can contribute their aspirations, their experiences, their knowledge, so we can co-build these models. And with these models, we can start to say, what are our options going forward? Which ones make sense? You know, what would be the cost of them? How would we move them to being shovel ready? What challenges will we face with permitting or financing and litigation and so on? I should point out that I'm part of a large team there, and this work on beach loss was led by one of my colleagues. So I was part of it, but led by one of my colleagues. I'm going to be pretty quick, but I think that saving beaches, first of all, for Orange County, it's a win for everybody. There are enormous economic implications. Beaches are the #1 tourist destination on the planet. And it's part of our identity here. And we know what's happening. Look at San Clemente, the site of 4 emergency permits in the past few years, where the railroad is now in danger, the beach is gone permanently, and so on. What communities like San Clemente and so on need is better understanding of what's driving the problem, what their choices are, being alerted with a sufficient time to act quickly rather than just have to pile rock on to try and protect roads and railroads and parking lots and so on, to be the ability to look into the future and so on. The information that people use today, and I'm not going to go into any detail here, literal sill concepts, very large scale, so not particularly helpful for a city or a particular beach. Sand budget concepts, okay, those important data point, but we need much more information. Seasonal concepts, we understand that. Winters bring bigger waves, beaches shrink. Summers, smaller waves, beaches grow. Aerial photos are very helpful because we can see things that we couldn't see before. But what's missing for a lot of people is very, very fine resolution, site-specific information on what's happening on their beach and what's likely to happen going forward in the next 5 years, 10 years, whatever. And this ability to do that, to provide that information, is available now in a way which simply historically was not possible. So we're not sort of saying, oh, it's unfortunate that we made certain decisions 50 or 60 years ago. It is, but at that time, the information available was very, very different. So we've developed a new sort of monitoring and prediction system. It brings in all sorts of information and tells us a great deal about beach dynamics. And I'm going to actually, I'm not going to go into this because I know that I've only got about 2 minutes left and I want to show you some of the results of this model. But one thing is it allows us to look at the implications of something like beach loss and coastal erosion for everything, for housing, for infrastructure, for transportation, and so on. It brings a lot of information, allows us we can zoom out because we build these models in a way that are millions and millions of cells packed with data. We can zoom out to the entire state, but we can zoom in to a household, and because we can zoom in and out, we can see the connection. What if we do something in Huntington Beach? How will that affect Newport Beach? If they act in LA, how will that affect us? We can start to see these connections, and they're important. This ability, this fine resolution is important. I want to give you an example. We do flood risk modeling, which is closely linked to beach and coastal health. And what we discovered in our modeling is that the information that is used today for planning and development purposes, so the FEMA flood zone maps, according to our calculations, are off by an enormous amount. They calculate 23,000 people at risk of a serious flood event. We calculate at least 247,000 people, 8 times as much property is really exposed. And that's what's happened in Florida. That's what's happened in Louisiana and Texas and Alabama and Puerto Rico. People underestimating who's at risk and so on. We think that we can do the same thing with beaches, that we've already done with flooding, and that it's already gone into the, we are now in discussion with people across the state about flood risk management. We think we should be having the same conversations about beach loss. If you look at what we've discovered, we can show you, and San Clemente is a good example. So this is data that comes out of our model, where we start to see beaches disappear, where it becomes a crisis. We could have begun working to protect the beach that's now gone San Clemente, 15 years ago. When we model what the situation is today, we see hotspots across our county, areas where beaches are disappearing very, very quickly, where we need to take quick and decisive action. And one of the things I'm excited about is that we now have the capacity not just to show you these are the beaches that are problematic, but also to sort of say, if you do this, if you put a breakwater, if you build, a seawall, if you build sand dunes, if you restore wetland, here are the implications. Here are the ways in which this could be beneficial. Here's what you could build on in the future as more information comes in. Here's where you might box yourself into a corner. Here's what the implications will be for your neighbors, and so on. So we can do this for the first time. And I'm really, really excited about it. What we need to do, our next step, of course, is to build that interface that takes this massive amount of information. And to be honest with you, people at UCI have been collecting data on the environment in Orange County since the university opened in 1965. We have a massive amount of data, but we don't have a great interfaces for sharing that data in practitioner-friendly ways, in intuitive ways. And that's what we're working on now. How do we take what we know about beach loss and coastal erosion and make it available to developers, planners, policymakers, lobbyists, nonprofits, and so on. So I'll end there because I think that's my 10 minutes. Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity to share a little bit.
Absolutely. And again, I think one of the reasons why we wanted to bring this in at this point in the process is that folks understand environmental concerns, environmental justice concerns are not subsidiary to the Community Economic Resilience Fund process. This is explicitly a triple bottom line program in which we care about equity and the environment as well as the economy. And in fact, one of the main drivers of creating the Community Economic Resilience Fund is the move towards a carbon neutral economy. But there are many other factors that we need to be focused on, including those that you elevated here around beach loss, an important, extremely important issue for Orange County specifically. So more to come on all of this. And what I'm going to do at this point is sort of formally adjourn the meeting, remind folks that we have our next HRTC meeting on Friday, April 28th. Then I want to hand over the presentation to the folks from SCAG to have about 10 minutes to present on the inclusive economic recovery strategy, which will go past 9:30. And then we'll use the balance of the time for questions for our research presenters. Jesse, the research deep dive is on the same Zoom line as this meeting, correct?
Correct. No one needs to go anywhere.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you again to the two presenters that we've had so far. And I want to turn it over to the team from SCAG to talk about their work, which, as we mentioned earlier, it's just critical that this not exist in a silo. And this is work that SCAG has been doing in particular over the course of the last couple of years that we want to make sure to align with what it is that we're doing here.
Thanks, Mike. I'm going to pull up my screen. I wasn't sure if you all were going to put the slides on. And actually, Jesse, do you have the slides available?
Yeah, but in a PDF form.
Got it. Here we go. Never mind. Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. And I'm very happy to be here. And as Mike has mentioned, share some of the work that I've been leading at SCAG, and SCAG has been engaged in since 2021. We really believe that our program is, very much aligned in terms of the values and that triple bottom line thinking in terms of economic growth. And we want to be good stewards of, public dollars and make sure we're coordinating and being consistent in a lot of the work that we're doing, because it is similar, and I think it can build on the work of the CERF. And so today, for those who I haven't had the pleasure to meet yet, I'm Victor Negrete. I'm the manager of Inclusive Economic Growth, a new department at the Southern California Association of Governments. And for anyone who's not familiar, SCAG traditionally has been, we lead the development of the long-range regional transportation plan for Southern California. More recently, we lead the development of what we call the sustainable community strategy as well. It's all about having a vision for the future growth of our region that, again, meets those climate goals, meets a number of other goals in terms of equity and determining the housing we need to house our population around Southern California. And the SCAG region, so you're aware, covers 191 cities in 6 counties, including Orange County, and about 19 million residents. So it's roughly half the state's population. So we're a very large region, and as a result, we're not only engaging with the Orange County CERF process, but we're engaging in a total of 5 different CERF regions that are encompassed throughout SCAG. Our work that really is, again, where I think there's a lot of overlap with some of the CERF principles and goals is in 2021, coming out of the pandemic, and as we witnessed the immediate and still lingering economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, and how the most disadvantaged communities were disproportionately affected. Our leadership, our stakeholders are the representatives, elected officials from those 191 cities and 6 counties around Southern California, really wanted us to put together a strategy of how do we ensure that the recovery from that pandemic and future growth is much more inclusive than it had been in the past. And so the entire strategy, which produced approximately 50 different strategies and things we should be engaging on, really centered on these principles that you see here on your screen. We were fortunate then to get a one-time grant from the state of California to implement work around about 7 or 8 of those 50 strategies. And so currently, the work we're doing is, these are some of the projects that we're leading, and I'll go into some level of detail, but not too much because I know we're limited here in time, but I'm more than happy to continue the conversation afterwards. And there are plenty of opportunities to engage. We want community input and feedback on all of these. And so I'll be available to connect afterwards and offline as well. But we're developing a job quality index, which I'll talk about. We're looking at the economic impacts of inequity. So what are the racial and gender pay gaps in Orange County costing the regional economy every year? We're developing procurement toolkits to help our cities, our stakeholders, to remove or address any unintentional barriers that are preventing small, diverse businesses from accessing those public contracts that are so key to small business growth. We're developing job plans to expand the number of and access to living wage jobs. And again, we're doing this 5 times, and we're doing this in 5 different CERF regions. And we're going to be looking at apprenticeships and how to expand on the different models that are out there and really promote them as a more inclusive pathway to good jobs. And then we're developing a report that looks at some of the intersectional barriers, such as childcare and access to transportation, housing instability. And we're going to be convening working groups of subject matter experts to develop some strategies. One of the other functions that SCAG fills is we advocate for state policies to respond to local needs that we identify. So the first deliverable that I'll share about, this is currently being developed with the help of a consultant team. And we're developing a job quality index. This was something that was actually recommended by the California Future Work Commission to look at, so we can measure the types of jobs that are growing in the region, but also looking beyond just the simple pay metric. In addition, so what other factors are important to the region's workforce? So we're considering things like benefits, flexibility, access to professional development opportunities and mobility. And so we're currently working to develop that framework, the metric that's going to be the what we use to measure job growth in the region going forward. And we're expecting to have that framework completed this summer. So we have a senior economist at SCAG, and she's leading some projects to study, again, the economic impacts of racial and gender inequity in each of our counties. We're working some software models to imagine what the economy would look like if we addressed those. And so how much, what's the business case? What are we losing because we currently have such inequities in our pay gaps and those kinds of things. And we are expecting to have some of that research completed again this summer as well. And we'll be sharing it out. We would for many of these deliverables would love the opportunity to come back and share with Orange County CERF. And just see, this is an area where I believe some of the work you're doing is similar, and so we want to be consistent in our approaches and ultimately, compare the findings. Just this month, we launched a project with HRNA Advisors, our consultant, to develop these toolkits, which again are going to look at the common barriers that we're going to work with chambers of commerce, the Black Chamber, Hispanic Chamber, American Indian Chambers of Commerce in our region to understand what is preventing small business from accessing public contracts, as well as being major providers for local supply chains. We're also working with anchor institutions such as hospitals, universities, to understand where there's opportunities to provide, again, more, small business opportunities so that they can really thrive in our region. So we make sure we're keeping as much of our public dollars as well as supply chain dollars in the local economy. And we expect that work to be done in October. We're working with we were talking earlier about local research institutions. So SCAG is partnered with the Community College Centers of Excellence, again, in each of these 5 CERF regions. And we're going to be looking at the occupations available in each county, specifically living wage jobs. And also, we're hoping in this case to be consistent with the goals of each CERF region. And so, depending on the sectors that are a priority in each of these regions, use that as a screen as well, right? And so we want to make sure that the living wage jobs that we're going to be ultimately developing educational pathways, identifying gaps and opportunities to improve these with the community colleges, are consistent with local priorities. And so as we do the labor market analysis to identify the living wage jobs that are current and expected in the future for each county, we want to make sure that we're going to develop pathways and really focus on areas that resonate with each community. Because we do, the community colleges, which I worked for a while, they have hundreds of pathways, and we're going to focus on about 20 to 25 pathways that are really of importance and significance to the local community, and really do a deep dive from the high school level to community college, and potentially, we want to focus on middle skills, but potentially also into bachelor's level education. And we are working to develop, this is going to be a report on best practices, essentially for the growth of apprenticeships and also project labor agreements in construction projects around Southern California. And this work we're expecting to be completed in November this year, which is during National Apprenticeship Week, which is a federally recognized week dedicated to apprenticeship development. And then finally, in address, we know that when we talk to communities about the types of jobs they'd like to see and the type of training and education that's needed to reach those jobs, we know we're going to hear about the barriers. So even if there was an unlimited share of new jobs and free training and whatnot, there's still going to be barriers that keep people from accessing that training or those employment opportunities, such as lack of childcare, lack of access to transportation, housing instability, all these things. And so this one's a region-wide report where we're gonna look at those common barriers that Southern California residents in each of our counties are experiencing, and again we're going to do a real deep dive into strategies and recommendations, whether it's funding or policy changes that we need to address those common barriers that Southern California residents, with a focus on low income and communities of color, are facing. And so this project, we're currently developing the RFP, and we expect that RFP to be released later this spring. And I know that a number of folks here would be interested. So again, I look forward to following up with you afterwards. And this is my contact information. I'm always available. So I'd love to share with you more about SCAG's work in this area and others. And thank you for the opportunity to present today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Victor. And it's terrific to know that we're going to have these resources being a part of the SCAG region, and that you're doing these analyses. The issue around higher wage jobs, what career pathways are going to provide that are essential. I mean, we are about a variety of different things, but at the end of the day, this is about people's lives and their livelihoods. And so having really good data on that that's tailored to the region is going to be essential. All right. Well, what we want to do with the 25 or so minutes that we have remaining is have questions for any of the research presenters, or just more commentary and direction in terms of what's going to be important as a part of the broader research agenda. So I will just open the floor up to that.
Bruce, I'm gonna jump in because they allowed me to not have a mute button. So thanks, Mike. Bruce Double D McRae with UPS. Been at UPS now going on 45 years. Started as an unloader and worked my way up to senior vice president at a company. We need, and I see Ernesto's on it. What I've always stated is bringing back shop classes, bringing back these type of schoolings to our high schools, allowing people to have opportunities to do something than just go out and get a college degree when they're so good with their hands, and they can work with wood, they can work with electronics, they can work with plumbing. Folks, we've brought our children down to they don't even know how to change oil in their own vehicles. They can't even change their own tire without calling somebody to do that. And this is a group, I'm blown away by the group. I'm just looking at all the names, and I followed so many of you, and I'm like going, wow, this is a group that if we all put our hands up and made phone calls to some of the state legislators and to the school districts, we can make a change with the power that's on this team. I really get tired of just hearing everybody talk, and it's such good conversations, but it goes to the wayside. LA County with the storm drains that dump all the trash into Long Beach and Orange County beaches. I mean, and no one gives any money on that. And it all comes down to storm drains. How do we fix it? Oh, there's so many ways to do it. So that was just a quick comment from me that UPS is always hiring. We promote from within. We're a proud Teamster company, and the opportunities are there with you. So God bless you all. Thank you for allowing me to interrupt.
No, you didn't interrupt. You're a part of this powerful group. We'll go to Austin and then Jasmine.
I have lots of comments, so I'll try to focus on only a few of them. I think that the factor that decides if a job is a living wage job is whether it's union or not, and I don't think that was stated clearly enough in the strategy report. So I'd like to see that. We just organized the workers at the Google cafeteria. They're making $18 now. A couple months later, they're making $25. It's not the job. They didn't get more education. They unionized. There are also apprenticeships are life-changing. There are also apprenticeships in food and beverage through the Hospitality Training Academy, which I believe just got approved today to join CERF. And so I think it's really important to keep that in mind because apprenticeships are so effective. Also, I think I know this is, of course, this is a short call. We're not covering everything, but there are a lot of environmental factors that affect disinvested communities ahead of saving beaches. And I think we need to make sure and include them. One of them, and this goes to also the map, I think, is that from a certain view, a lot of OC's disinvested communities are outside OC. I mean, the people, primarily people of color who drive 3 hours from Lake Elsinore, Apple Valley, Riverside, all these places, they're experiencing environmental racism by having to be on the road, for a 3-4 hour commute both ways every day. And for many other reasons. So I think, I don't know how that gets factored in, but that's a very important, aspect of economic inequality in Orange County. Those folks would love to live in Orange County. In many cases, they can't.
Yeah, 100% on
That's
that. I mean, and so one of the reasons why I believe OCBC brought us in as a statewide organization that's working across a variety of regions, working very closely with the folks in LA, Inland Empire, San Diego, and Imperial, is that these strategies cannot pretend like the county borders are not permeable, and they need to make sure to be integrated. And I think that's one of the great reasons why we'll have a great partner in SCAG, which does research across this broader region. But all of your points are incredibly well taken, and we're not thinking about this solely as stopping at the Orange County borders.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for this. I really found it's really great to see insights into what's coming down the pipe, because this overlaps with a lot of work that we're planning on doing. So now we know, right, some of the research is going to be taken care of. Just a few questions for Victor on the apprenticeships. I noticed that you very specifically called out construction apprenticeships, and I didn't know if that was just as an example, or I think there's an opportunity for apprenticeships across a number of different industries that align to middle and higher paying jobs. So is it all about construction, or are you, based on the data, will recommend other apprenticeship opportunities?
No, thanks for the question. So it's actually both. So I think there's going to be, when we committed to doing this work with the state, there's kind of two deliverables that are related but also distinct. And so on the one hand, we do intend to produce a report that has best practices, including the expansion. The expansion of the apprenticeship model into new industries, as Bruce was saying, is a best practice, right? It's a new pathway that allows people to earn as they learn. And so we want to highlight new models for nursing, for cybersecurity, all these things that are happening around the region that are really exciting. So that's one. And this is an area where if you're an organization that's doing something new and innovative in this way, we want to lift that up and highlight that. And then two, on the construction side, we're aiming to really have something more focused on that as well, because of our mission as SCAG. Again, we've historically been, we lead the regional transportation plan, as well as we play a role in the regional housing needs assessments for the counties and communities. And so we know that one of the barriers to meeting our housing goals is the lack of skilled labor. And so we want to specifically talk about expanding the pipeline of skilled labor into those trades to help us meet our housing goals. So that's why the two.
Okay, great. And then one other quick question was on the community college pathways. I mean, there is an opportunity where there's a lot of pathways that don't necessarily have to go through community college, right? With the expansion of micro-credentials and things that boot camps, and every industry specialty has their own credential. So I'm just curious how you're thinking about that. There can be different pathways besides just community college or university.
Great, thanks. Jesse's going to open up the line so that a non-HRTC member can ask a question, and then we're going to go to Ernesto, and then Catherine. I'm not sure if that's you.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, sorry. No, this is Edmund. So Edmund.
Okay, so we'll go to Edmund, and then Ernesto, and then you, Catherine.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Edmund Velasco. I'm the president of Musicians Union in Orange County. One of the issues that we aren't covering is that Southern California, well, actually California in general, one of the largest economic drivers is the entertainment industry and the arts. And it's really not addressed in any of the plans about, especially after, coming through COVID and the industry being pretty devastated with a lot of musicians and actors and stage hands all suffering because of it. And it's I think in many ways it's a matter of it's a definitely something about equity in the workforce, because most of the people who are making like the stagehands and are those are good union jobs that actually make a good living for those people who do it, but the artists themselves are not considered part of that. um, they're basically discriminated against because we are limited of how we can actually bargain with our partners in work that happens all around Southern California, and especially in Orange County. And I think that we should be addressing those components as well in the economic plan.
Yeah, that's, I mean, just a little bit of shameless self-promotion here. You know, that is certainly something that we at California Forward are working on. We have an economic summit working group on the creative economy led by Gustavo Herrera, who runs Arts for LA. And as we look at this, we're going to need to look across all of the major economic drivers. And as you point out, especially in Southern California, the arts are a significant one. Ernesto.
Thank you. We're talking about apprenticeships, so I figured I'd chime in since we pretty much hold the gold standard in joint labor management apprenticeship in the construction sector. I think I want to piggyback a little bit on the comments that Victor mentioned in terms of the residential sector. I think we've made a lot of inroads up in LA County. We just have got to, I think we got to have the industry embrace the fact that you need apprenticeship standards in the skilled and trained workforce in that sector, just like we did in the energy industry, where they had low wage, low skilled workers. We were able to elevate that standard by codifying an apprenticeship standard. And so we're more than glad to sit down with anybody here in the group to educate you on what apprenticeships are, how they operate. In fact, I'd like to kind of throw the invite. I know that the iron workers are on here somewhere, but they have a great facility in Orange County, and we'd like to do host anyone that is interested in doing tours of that apprenticeship training center, up to and including engaging with the apprentices. And we also have an apprenticeship readiness program that we partner with. We have about over 20 centers, programs in LA and Orange County, where we do it, whether it's from the high school level, the community college, and community partners. So I didn't want to eat a lot of that time, but I do want to make folks aware of the greatest hidden secret and the other four-year degree.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, Ernesto. And one of the things that I think is a real power of this group is that it unites researchers and practitioners.
Yes.
Because often, you know, the folks that are looking at these issues are looking at it, and this is not, I'm an academic by training, not a dig, from kind of an academic perspective. And so you need to make sure to have that practical practitioner perspective represented in this as well. Catherine.
Thank you so much. So Victor and Ernesto, you know, I run the Orange County Conservation Corps. We just started a carpenter's training program. They are learning to build tiny homes in our warehouse. So I would love to reach out to both of you and have you come and take a look at it and see what we can do to expand. We have a lot of young people who would love to do this. It does cost money. And so we're limited kind of in that capacity. So I'd love to show you that program. And Professor Matthews, I've been working with Professor Gould from UCI. So we along with Senator Newman ran an Ocean Corps legislation last year. And it was widely accepted through the legislature, except the ask just got too big and the governor vetoed it. So we don't want to give up on the concept of the Ocean Corps, which is bringing young people, workforce development to the issues of our coastline. So we're trying to get through a planning grant through the Integrated Climate Adaptation Program through the Governor's Office of Research and Planning. And I'd love to talk to you more about, especially all of your data and research that you're doing.
Great. And I love the connections that we're making here. I think that's also part of the power of the group. Jill?
Hi, good morning, everyone. I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Jill Katavis, and I work at Orange County Department of Education. And we are one of the few counties that has a unit devoted completely to career education. And I'm the administrator. My illustrious leader is out of town, otherwise she would be here. But I just wanted to share with everyone that we've been aggressively pursuing a lot of funding to support career education throughout the region. And we recently received an $18 million grant to build pipelines between high school into community college, four-year college, and into career, and getting students into business, whatever pathway they'll take. So I just wanted everyone to know we're aggressively pursuing that, and we're going to continue to do that. And I've been writing down a lot of names as potential business partners in this endeavor. So I just want to thank everyone. And if anyone has any questions in reference to education in particular, I'm happy to help in any way I can.
Awesome. Thanks, Jill. Any other questions that folks have, or comments or observations about all of this? One of the things that I just wanted to, make sure that we continue to pull out of this conversation is that our communities are much more rich in their, sort of racial and ethnic lineages than these high level demographic data show. We've already, had comments on the fact that there are lots of different Asian American communities that have a variety of different experiences. There is also, there was a 276% increase between 2010 and 2020 in people that self-identify as multiracial in demographic surveys, which is a massive undercount. In part because people tend not to report those identities in demographic surveys, and also because it doesn't take into account multi-ethnic lineages. So, we're just going to have to get very hyper-local in terms of, what are the communities of Orange County? What is the richness of their, livelihoods, lives, ethnic lineages, and so on. And I just want to, just sort of echo from my perspective and kind of plus one the comments about making sure that we are getting very granular in terms of understanding our communities as we craft a strategy to make it more equitable and sustainable in Orange County.
Micah, to that, with the last couple of minutes, is there something that kind of mapping Black California or Esri's on that call can kind of speak to some of that?
Hey, Jesse. And hey, everybody. Hey, Micah. My name is Brian McNamara. I'm a consultant at Esri. Hopefully my sound's coming through.
Yep, we can hear.
Thumbs up. Awesome. Appreciate it. I know we were tight on time earlier. I'd have a couple of slides that would kind of speak to some other data categories that have come up. So if I have 2 minutes, I can burn through 4 slides real quick.
Please.
If that's all right. Yeah.
Sure.
Share my screen with you all. Let's see if that is coming through, almost coming through. All right.
What's up?
Sweet. There we go. Awesome. So again, my name is Brian McNamara. I'm a consultant project manager on Esri on the geodesign and planning team. So kind of expanding upon the data categories mentioned previously in this slide, I really want to take note onto the different types of data we'll be putting together and providing up on a GIS platform for other research analysis and other use. I did want to preface it by saying it's a little bit of an iterative process. Like you said, this is a quick burn project, but also long going. So if you don't see, if you feel like something's missing, it can definitely be added to it. We're always looking for feedback. I'm taking a lot of great notes from the amazing comments people are having here today. So this is very much just like a version 1, we can say. So what we're doing is creating a data hub and open data portal. So we'll be gathering different data streams and putting them all in one location. Right now we're focusing on equity and inclusiveness, COVID recovery, sustainable environmental justice, and demographics are up there as well, just because they tie into a lot of things, multiple data categories. And again, since it's on our, Esri is a geospatial technology company, we have a browser-based platform as well as other platforms where anybody can go in and look at data from all scales. So that's national, state, county, and hyperlocal, local, any spatially enabled geodata set. Spatial, so just think an address. That's really the connection there. Again, just topping out some examples of the different type of data categories we're focusing on right now. And then as we continue down the process, we'll be bringing in, more climate data, and great presentation from SCAG and UCI. So I look forward to connecting with you all on that as well. So these are just some examples on the data toolkit. If you saw that from CERF as well, there's some overlap, but really getting all those different data tools, environmental justice, Justice 40 data in one spot where you can kind of look at it and analyze the impacts in Orange County specifically. In COVID recovery, I'm not going to go too much in detail this, just because we've all been looking at it the last few years. The Johns Hopkins data, a lot of COVID data as well will be available. And then environmental justice and sustainability as well. So again, tying in some key data sets that are open and free online, just in one spot, so people can jump in and really kind of do farther analysis. And we look forward to working more with the researchers to help them out.
Yeah, and I think just quickly, I think this speaks to the point that, beach loss is an important thing to focus on, but there are a lot of different environmental factors that are impacting Orange County's disinvested communities that we need to make sure to focus on. So I'm glad that we'll have that in that open data portal.
Absolutely, we'll be able to look at the interaction between the two and see what overlaps and how to leverage all that data set. So I don't really have a quick demo. I'll show you, flash up the site, but I know we're busy. I don't want to take up more of the time, but again, it's just an open data site. We'll be able to, you can go in, click categories, bring up data sets, and you can dig deeper into them. And I look forward to working more with other researchers and people on this call to further refine that. So that's all I have for y'all today. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Thanks, Brian.
Mitch, one other thing I got to bring up, especially for the youth trying to get jobs. Yes, and it is about living wages, but we also have to throw in, what about their pension? What about their medical? What about tuition reimbursement? And we have to look at companies that are truly doing those type of things too. Medical now will kill people. I hate saying it's not in that sense, but medical prices sit there with children trying to get just medical attention, and looking at companies that do that. And I think somebody had stated this. I'm looking at the name. Hold on, I'll find him. Oh, he's off. But somebody has stated it's just usually union jobs that do that. And there are other companies that are doing it that are non-union.
Yeah, I think we have been like a lot of time on this question in particular. What a lot of people end up doing, and honestly, what we kind of had to end up doing was defaulting to a particular wage standard, because it turns out there is so much richness to what it is to have a good employer, what it is to have a good profession. It's difficult to quantify that like across all these different areas. But once you hit a particular wage, you tend to have the other, kind of benefits that come along with that. But that's just like high level stuff. When we're getting more granular, we, are able at the local level to look at, what are the employers, what are the benefits they're offering beyond just what the wage is that they are paying. All right. Well, I don't know if there are any more burning questions, but I think we are.
Micah, you're on mute. Sorry. Luis, you want to do the one last comment before we adjourn?
Sure, thank you. Just appreciate the maps. I appreciated seeing the maps with the native names on them, and thank you for that. My comment was just moving forward, some data that I've seen in the past few years that I feel is could be helpful for community members to also be receiving while we're having these conversations. I remember seeing folks from Accord and from Kennedy Commission in past years share a graphic where they demonstrate the types of jobs that are growing in Orange County, and mostly showing low-paying jobs are the sectors that have seen most growth in past decades. And then I remember this graphic where there's also a dotted line that shows the average cost of housing far above the you know, the income levels of the types of jobs that are mostly available in our communities. So that was just one piece of data that I think that it would be, maybe we can reach out to some of these partners to get some of that data from them, or I'm not sure if folks that are already doing this work have capacity to produce a graphic like that, but that was something that might be cool to incorporate moving forward. And yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to curate this data in ways that will be helpful to have these conversations with community folks. So thank you.
Awesome. So much, Luis. I think that's a great note to end on. Kennedy Commission is one of the groups that's been very involved in this from the outset. Appreciate everybody's time this morning, and we will see you in 2 weeks. I know you just look forward to every HRTC meeting every other Friday, and we aim to deliver with lots of wonky content and collaboration across the county. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.